Somewhere in America tonight, a 28-year-old is opening a lease renewal letter. She has been in this one bedroom for 2 years. The dishwasher works most of the time. The neighbor above her sounds like he is practicing competitive bowling at 11 p.m. She scans down to the number. Her rent is going up $185 per month. She does the math fast, the way you get good at when every month is already a close call. That is $2,220 per year. That is her entire emergency fund. And here is what nobody at the leasing office will say out loud: she is actually one of the lucky ones. Her city is among the few where rents are technically softening right now. This is not a video about rent being expensive. You already know that. This is a video about why the math we used to define affordable stopped working years ago, and almost nobody has said it plainly yet. My name is Root. Let Root show you exactly how deep this goes. Start with the rule, because everything else collapses once the rule does. You have probably heard it your entire adult life: spend no more than 30% of your income on rent. Clean. Simple. Feels responsible. Financial advisors love it. Your parents probably said it. Here is the thing: that rule is from 1969. The original version was actually 25%. It came from something called the Brooke Amendment, and it was designed for exactly one purpose: capping how much the federal government could charge low-income tenants in public housing. It was a rent-setting formula for a specific program, not a universal law of financial health. In 1981, under the Reagan administration, the ceiling was bumped to 30%. And somewhere along the way, it escaped the public housing context, got into the broader culture, and became the universal definition of what affordable means for every renter in America. Nobody ever updated it. Not when healthcare went from 6% of GDP to 17%. Not when student loans grew into a $1.7 trillion national burden. Not when the average new car payment hit $767 per month, or when family health insurance premiums crossed $27,000 per year. The 30% rule is frozen in 1981 while every other major expense in American life has been run through a shredder. So let Root run the actual numbers. As of March 2026, Zillow puts the typical U.S. rent at $1,910 per month. At the 30% rule, that means you need to earn roughly $76,400 per year to afford the average American apartment. The median U.S. household income is about $83,000, which sounds like it barely works. Except the median household is not the median renter. The median renter household earns approximately $51,000. Homeowners pull in $94,000. Renters earn about 54 cents for every dollar a homeowner makes. The actual person paying actual rent is spending about 45% of gross income on housing before a single utility, car payment, or loan enters the equation. Half of all American renters, 22.6 million households, are officially cost-burdened by the government's own definition. That is an all-time record. And 12.1 million of those are severely burdened, meaning they spend over half of every paycheck just on rent. If you are thinking those must be low-income renters, here is the uncomfortable update: among renters earning between $45,000 and $75,000, a solidly middle-class income, 45% are now cost-burdened. That number has nearly doubled in 2 decades. Rent has stopped being a poverty issue. It has become a normal life issue. Somewhere along the way, this country decided that if you cannot afford rent, the problem must be your spending habits. Financial influencers built entire careers telling people earning $48,000 in cities where a one-bedroom costs $2,000 that the reason they cannot save is because they ordered food delivery twice last month. You cannot budget your way out of a structural input problem. You cannot skip enough avocado toast to close a $500 monthly math gap. The numbers are not lying. The framing is. Let Root build a real budget to show exactly what this looks like in practice. Meet Kevin. Kevin is not a real person, but Kevin is essentially every third person watching this video. Kevin is 30, single, and lives in Columbus, Ohio, which matters because Columbus is cheap. Columbus is not a coastal city with a terrifying cost of living. It shows up on every best places to live list. Kevin earns $48,000 per year, right around the national median for a single worker. His gross monthly income is $4,000. After federal taxes, FICA, Ohio state income tax, and a modest health insurance premium, Kevin takes home approximately $3,226 per month. A one-bedroom in Columbus averages about $1,165. That is 29% of his gross income. Kevin technically passes the 30% rule. Congratulations, Kevin. You are doing everything right. Except now Kevin has to pay for the rest of being alive. Utilities, internet, phone, and renter's insurance, $460. Groceries, $425 if he is careful. Dining out, which includes the occasional sad burrito at 9 p.m. because cooking again feels impossible, $220. Used car payment on a 5-year-old Toyota because Kevin read one article about depreciation and took it seriously, $537. Car insurance, gas, and maintenance, $380. Student loan, $300. Health copays, $75. Entertainment and personal care, $195. Kevin's total monthly expenses, approximately $3,754. Kevin's take-home pay, $3,226. Kevin is in the hole $528 every single month. And he has done nothing wrong. No boat. No expensive truck. No weekend getaways. He got a one-bedroom in a cheap city, drove a used car, and bought groceries. Kevin's rent is 29% of gross income, technically inside the rule. But after taxes, it is 36% of his actual money. And after every other unavoidable expense, Kevin is mathematically insolvent. The 30% rule worked perfectly. And it produced a person who cannot afford to exist within it. Now take Kevin and turn him into a couple earning $100,000 combined in Denver. 6 figures. A 2-bedroom in Denver runs about $2,500. After taxes and a family health premium, this couple takes home approximately $6,238 per month. 2 car payments, 2 insurance policies, and commuting costs alone run $2,239. Add utilities, groceries, 2 student loans, health copays, and basic entertainment, and what is left at month end? Negative $938. They are not flying anywhere. They are earning 6 figures and losing a monthly competition to their own electric bill. This is why the 30% rule feels like a cruel joke when you actually try to apply it. And the worst part is that it gives people who are drowning a reason to blame themselves. They look at the numbers, see rent is technically 30% of gross, and conclude they must be bad with money. The math is bad. You are just the one stuck inside it. Now, you might assume that at least the rent itself is set by some kind of functioning competitive market. Here is what ProPublica found in 2022. A company called RealPage sold pricing software, its flagship product called YieldStar, to apartment landlords across America. Landlords would feed it their private rent data, occupancy numbers, and lease terms. The software would cross-reference that with data from every other landlord using the same platform and spit out a suggested rent price. By 2022, RealPage software was pricing approximately 19.5 million apartments, roughly 1 in 6 rental units in the entire country. In one Seattle neighborhood, ProPublica found that 70% of more than 10,000 apartments were being priced by just 10 property managers, all using the same software, all seeing each other's data simultaneously. One RealPage vice president reportedly told a sales meeting that leasing agents have too much empathy, an actual sentence said by an actual human being in an actual professional meeting, after which nobody in the room apparently stood up and walked out. The Department of Justice later cited a landlord who raised rents more than 25% within 11 months of adopting the software. In 2024, the DOJ sued RealPage for what amounts to algorithmic collusion among landlords. In late 2025, the case settled. Want to know how much RealPage paid in fines? $0. No admission of wrongdoing. They simply agreed to stop using competitors' private data and accepted an independent monitor for 3 years. That is it. The money extracted from millions of renters during the peak years is gone. That rent increase you received in 2022 that felt completely inexplicable, that was very likely a pricing algorithm. And the algorithm faced no meaningful consequences. And if you think that is the worst part, wait until you try to actually sign a lease. The listed rent is not the real rent. The listed rent is the menu price. The actual price comes with application fees ranging from $50 to $350 per apartment. Apply to 10 places at $75 each and you have spent $750 before signing anything. Security deposits of 1 to 2 months' rent sit locked in a landlord's account earning interest for them, not for you. Nationwide, an estimated $45 billion of renters' money is frozen in security deposit escrow right now. Roughly the GDP of Bolivia, just sitting there. Then the drip fees begin, pet deposits, pet fees, and monthly pet rent for an animal that did not sign the lease and has no credit score. About 72% of pet-friendly apartments now charge monthly pet rent, up from 58% in 2018. Parking, amenity fees, technology package fees for internet you did not request, and trash valet charges for a service that replaces a 40-foot walk to a dumpster. The FTC passed a rule in 2025 called the junk fees rule, requiring businesses to disclose full prices up front. It went into effect in May 2025. Rental housing was specifically and explicitly excluded from that rule. The regulation designed to stop junk fees excluded the single largest source of junk fees in American life. That is not a bureaucratic oversight. That is a deliberate result. Here is another number that should not be real but is. In Phoenix, Arizona in 2024, a landlord filed an eviction every 6 minutes. That is 86,946 eviction filings in a single metro in a single year. Faster than most people can make a sandwich. And one more that reframes everything else, according to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, 48% of the U.S. workforce, approximately 74 million workers, earn below the national 2-bedroom housing wage. Almost half the people who go to work every single day in this country do not earn enough to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rent anywhere in America. Not in their city. Not in any city. These are the people running the country. And the country they run has priced them out of it. You might be thinking at this point that you will simply buy a house instead. And honestly, that instinct is why the next number is so demoralizing. Bankrate ran the numbers in 2025. In all 50 of the largest U.S. metros, renting is cheaper than buying the equivalent home. Not some of them, all of them. Nationally, buying costs 38% more per month than renting. In San Jose, buying costs approximately $4,783 more per month than renting an equivalent home. Every single month. But the mortgage builds equity, right? On a median-priced American home at today's mortgage rate of around 6.3%, roughly 84% of your first year's mortgage payments go to interest. In year one, you would build approximately $3,870 in equity while handing the bank roughly $20,400 in interest. That is not wealth building. That is rent paid to a bank with significantly more paperwork. Zillow calculated that at current wages and savings rates, the typical American renter now needs approximately 12 years to save a 20% down payment on a median-priced home. 5 years ago, that number was essentially zero. The down payment itself has become a life stage. So where do people actually go? The honest answer is back home, to a roommate, or both. About 32.5% of Americans between 18 and 34, approximately 23 million people, now live with their parents. Near the highest share since the 1940s. One Zillow survey found that 60% of Gen Z and millennial renters say finding a compatible roommate is now harder than finding a romantic partner. And it is not only young people navigating this. Meet Linda. Linda is 71. She spent 40 years working as a legal secretary in Phoenix. Her Social Security and small pension together bring in about $2,100 per month. Her rent just went up to $1,650. Linda is now spending 79% of her income on housing. Linda is not an edge case. There are 12.4 million cost-burdened senior households in America right now, a record. 66% of women over 65 who rent alone are cost-burdened. These are people on fixed incomes watching rents increase 8% at renewal every year, with no raise arriving to catch up. In January 2024, HUD counted 771,480 Americans homeless on a single night, the highest number ever recorded, up 18% in 1 year. Nearly 150,000 of them were children. HUD's own report explicitly named housing affordability as the primary driver. Now Root wants to give you the honest full picture, because doom without context is incomplete. There is real good news buried in 2026. Rent growth has slowed to 1.8% nationally, the slowest pace since 2020. Some Sunbelt cities are actively declining, Austin down 4.8% year over year, Denver down 3.6%, Phoenix down 2.9%. In 15 of the 50 largest metros, rents are at least 10% below their pandemic peak. Wage growth is finally outpacing rent growth. The typical renter household has about $2,300 more monthly breathing room this year compared to last. If your lease is renewing right now, negotiate. Landlords are offering concessions again: free months, waived fees, reduced deposits. The leverage briefly belongs to tenants. Use it. But Root has to be straight with you about what this moment actually is. This is not the start of a new trend. This is a supply blip. In 2024, apartment builders completed about 680,000 multifamily units, a 38-year high. That wave of new supply is exactly why rents are soft right now. When a large volume hits the market simultaneously, landlords compete, and competition means concessions. But in 2024, builders started approximately 254,000 fewer multifamily units than they completed. Interest rates spiked. Construction costs jumped. Tariffs added roughly $10,900 to the cost of every new home. The pipeline currently filling the market is already draining. 2025 deliveries dropped to about 500,000. 2026 is projected at 330,000 to 470,000. 2027 is projected to bottom out around 327,000, roughly half of what the market is receiving today, arriving into a market where renter demand continues to grow. 80% of existing homeowners are locked into mortgages below 5% and are not moving. Every major forecaster expects rent growth to re-accelerate beginning in late 2026. CBRE projects a 3.1% annual average over the next 5 years, above the pre-pandemic baseline. The honest interpretation: 2026 is likely the best rental market tenants will see this decade. It is the eye of the storm, not the end of it. And if you are out there just surviving renting, doing what you can, making it work month to month, Root wants you to hear this clearly: none of this is your fault. You are not failing the 30% rule. The 30% rule is failing you. That rule was designed in an era when a car cost the equivalent of $3,000 in today's dollars, college was functionally free, and one income could support an entire family. That world is gone. The rule never updated. The honest answer to who can afford rent in 2026 is not the median individual worker, not the median renter household, not the median young adult, and increasingly not the median senior citizen. Everyone else is making it work by breaking a different rule: skipping the car, giving up the solo apartment, pausing retirement savings, or moving back in with family. The math is not a personal failure. It is a system output. Here is what you can actually do with that knowledge this week. 3 concrete moves. First, if your lease is renewing in 2026, do not accept the first renewal number the landlord sends. Look up what concessions are being offered on new leases in your building or your neighborhood right now. Walk into that conversation with data. The leverage is briefly yours. It will not be yours in 2027. Second, if you are thinking about buying, do not run the national numbers, run your specific zip code. In a handful of metros, the rent versus buy math is actually close. In most, it is not. Third, if remote work is an option for you, look seriously at the roughly 7% of U.S. counties where a one-bedroom still rents for under $1,000. Wichita, Louisville, Oklahoma City, Toledo. The trade-offs are real, but so is the math. The math has been working against you for years. It is time to start running it in your favor.